Caitlin Clark held back from ref after verbal clash. This was the moment things boiled over. Caitlin Clark, already bruised and frustrated, getting into it with referee #39. And this wasn't your typical back and forth. This got so intense, she had to be physically held back by a coach. Video shows her yelling, her expression boiling with anger, and lip readers catching lines like, "That has nothing to do with it." What did he say to her? Why did she nearly square up with an official in the middle of a game? No tech, no fine, and most importantly, no ESPN coverage. When an NBA player does this, it leads every sports show. But with Clark, silence. This wasn't just an emotional reaction. This was the face of your league losing total trust in the system, and they just let it slide. Colin Clark deletes tweet blaming refs for his sister's injury. You know something's wrong when even family can't stay quiet. After Caitlin re-injured her groin against the Sun, her brother Colin Clark tweeted, "Make no mistake, this is on the reffing." That's not a fan rant. That's someone who's watched her limp away too many times. But here's where it gets wild. The tweet was deleted within hours. Why? Pressure? PR panic? We don't know. But what we do know is that ESPN completely ignored it. No panel discussion, no debate segment. And yet, this is the biggest star in women's basketball, and her own brother is calling out league officiating. If this had happened in the NFL or NBA, they'd dedicate entire segments to it. But here, the silence is telling. Dave Portnoy calls WNBA a sick league over no-call madness. Say what you want about Dave Portnoy, the man doesn't pull punches. After Clark's emotional groin injury moment and blatant no-calls, Portnoy posted a furious rant calling the WNBA a sick league. He straight up said she should sit out the rest of the season to protect herself. Not from basketball, but from the lack of officiating protection. ESPN? Crickets. Portnoy's take went viral, but nobody in the mainstream sports media dared to touch it. Why? Because it would mean admitting the WNBA's refereeing system is broken, and that maybe, just maybe, Caitlin Clark is being sacrificed for ratings. Portnoy didn't hold back, and honestly, someone needed to say it. Sophie Cunningham elbowed in the head, told she flopped. You want to know how bad the officiating has gotten? Watch the play where Sophie Cunningham gets elbowed in the neck by Bria Hartley, drops to the floor, and then is accused of flopping. She even posted the clip herself, mocking the situation. The hit is real, the contact is hard, and the refs? No foul, just vibes. ESPN could have led with this as a growing player safety issue, but instead, the network looked the other way, again. Cunningham is no rookie. She's a veteran, and even she is starting to lose faith in how these games are managed. If elbows to the neck are being shrugged off, what's the point of even having rules? Aaliyah Boston thrown down in the paint. Common foul called. Go watch the clip. Aaliyah Boston is fighting for position in the post, and then Tina Charles literally grabs, spins, and throws her to the ground. It looks more like WWE than WNBA. And the referees? They called it a common foul. That's it. No flagrant, no review, no protection. What's worse is that Boston was clearly in pain and slow to get up, and yet no one, not the refs, not ESPN, seemed to care. This wasn't physical basketball. This was reckless, and the league just let it ride. If that exact play had happened to LeBron or Jokic, SportsCenter would have done a slow-mo breakdown with Shaq and Chuck arguing over it. But here, one of the league's most valuable bigs is getting slammed to the hardwood, and the media pretends it's normal. Stephanie White goes off on referees in viral presser. Stephanie White, head coach of the Fever, has been trying to bite her tongue all season. But after one too many no calls and one too many players hit the deck, she snapped. In her post-game presser, she torched the refs, saying, "The game is fast. Everyone's getting better except the officiating." And she's right. The talent in the WNBA is rising. The coaching is evolving. The pace is elite. But the officials? Still acting like it's 2004. And what did ESPN do with White's passionate moment? Barely anything. No follow-up, no panel breakdown. They aired a clip and moved on. But this was a head coach screaming for help, and the media muted it like it was background noise. Ref confronts Caitlin Clark. Clark tells him to grow up. This one is straight up insane. After already clashing with referee #39 earlier in the game, Caitlin Clark goes back at him a second time, this time saying, "That's just rude. Grow up. Come here." She even yells, "I'm gonna call the league on you." Let that sink in. The WNBA's biggest name had to threaten to report a ref mid-game. And again, No technical, no review, no consequences. Just Caitlin being gaslit by someone with a whistle. And where was ESPN in all of this? Where was the discussion about professionalism, accountability? If this had happened in the men's league, it would dominate headlines. But here, the story died as quickly as the next box score dropped. No calls in Fever versus Sun despite repeated hard contact. This entire game felt like a brawl disguised as basketball. Whether it was Caitlin Clark getting hacked on drives, Aaliyah Boston thrown around under the rim, or Sophie Cunningham getting bodied on the sideline, the refs just stood there and watched. No whistles, no control, no respect for the players. Even the commentators started questioning what was happening. But ESPN, they covered the stat line. They talked about who had how many points, while ignoring the fact that the game looked more like roller derby. If you want fans to take your league seriously, start by showing that you take player safety seriously. Because this wasn't just bad officiating, it was neglect, and the silence from ESPN and the league office was even louder. Becky Hammon compares WNBA to rugby after no-call loss. Becky Hammon isn't just any coach. She's a WNBA champion, a former NBA assistant, and one of the most respected voices in women's hoops. So when she said the officiating made her game feel like rugby, people should have paid attention. But instead, her quote barely got airtime. Hammon was reacting to another physical mess of a game where players were taking hits with zero calls. "It's just out of control," she said, clearly fed up. Yet ESPN buried it in a highlight package and moved on. Imagine Steve Kerr saying NBA refs were turning games into rugby matches. There'd be a media firestorm. But in the WNBA, you get one quote in passing and total silence after. If Hammon's voice can't trigger reform, what will? WNBA quietly upgrades flagrant foul, but never admits the system's broken. Let's talk about the Marina Mabrey foul. It wasn't called flagrant during the game, even though it was a clear elbow to the head situation. Days later, the WNBA quietly upgraded it to a flagrant 2. They even fined Sophie Cunningham for her part in the aftermath. So yes, the league knew they missed it. They knew the officiating failed, but they didn't say that publicly. They just edited the record like a Wikipedia page and hoped no one noticed. ESPN didn't run a league admits major officiating mistake story. They didn't highlight the systemic problem. It was a news blip, not a reckoning. The WNBA knows its officials are blowing calls, but instead of fixing it, they just rewrite history behind the scenes. Clark's minor groin injury comes back, worse. Remember when they said Caitlin Clark's groin strain was nothing serious? Well, fast forward a few games and she's limping again, clutching the other side of her groin. This isn't just bad luck. This is textbook mismanagement. And ESPN? They didn't investigate why a star rookie is clearly getting worse, not better. No discussion on whether she was rushed back. No concern over the Fever's rehab plan. No segment questioning the training staff. They just keep cutting to commercials with Caitlin Clark, presented by Kia. But fans aren't blind. We see her dragging her leg. We see the frustration on her face. And we're wondering, are we watching the beginning of a generational career or the slow destruction of one? Groin, quad, other quad, groin again. What's going on? Let's break this down. Clark has now dealt with pain in her right quad, left groin, and now right groin, all within a few weeks. That's not a coincidence. That's a body crying out for help. These aren't freak accidents. They're compounding overuse injuries, which raises the question, where is the outrage? Where's the actual sports science discussion? ESPN didn't bring in a single analyst to ask, hey, is something going wrong with her biomechanics, her rehab? Instead, they keep spinning the "she's a warrior" narrative. But this isn't toughness, it's risk, the kind that shortens careers. Caitlin Clark isn't injury-prone. She's overexposed, under-rested, and getting no protection from the league that markets her like an action figure. Caitlin Clark playing through pain at All-Star Weekend. For marketing, Caitlin Clark was named to the WNBA All-Star three-point contest in her rookie season, right in her home state at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. A dream scenario, right? But here's the problem. She's injured. She's limping. Her groin is clearly not healed. And yet the league still wants her out there at 60% speed, smiling for cameras and chucking logo threes because they need the ratings, because they need the jersey sales. But do they care about her? The pressure to perform through injury isn't new. But when the league's biggest star is being used as a prop instead of being protected, that's a failure. ESPN didn't talk about the ethical dilemma. They just ran the highlight reel. But let's be honest, if Clark re-injures herself in that contest, that blood's on the league's hands. Summer overload? Did Clark's offseason actually harm her? Caitlin Clark didn't rest. She didn't slow down. Right after a brutal NCAA run, she dove into media tours, sponsorship appearances, all-star PR, and a grueling WNBA schedule. Oh, and golf. Lots of golf. But what she didn't do? Recover. ESPN never questioned it, never asked, should she have taken time off? Instead, they rewarded the hustle with airtime and brand partnerships. But here's the ugly truth. Her body is breaking down. Multiple leg injuries, lingering groin issues, signs of overuse and biomechanical imbalance. But because she's their ratings magnet, no one in the mainstream sports media dares to say what's obvious. Clark's not playing too hard. She's being asked to do too much, and it's catching up. Fever's off-season workload criticized by trainers, but ESPN shrugs. Across social media, sports physiologists, athletic trainers, and former players are raising red flags about the Fever's handling of Caitlin Clark's injury load. Questions about her minutes, her rehab timeline, even the mechanics of her movements, they're all out there. But has ESPN brought on a single expert to discuss this? No. They're too busy showing slow-mo replays of her three-point release. This isn't just bad journalism, it's dangerous silence. Because the fans see it, the professionals see it, and still, the largest sports platform in America refuses to investigate what could be the biggest story of the season, that the WNBA's top rookie is being physically mismanaged right in front of our eyes. Angel Reese gets scrutinized for everything. Clark, protected. Let's talk about double standards. Angel Reese so much as flips her hair wrong, and ESPN has a debate panel within 30 minutes. Is Angel too emotional? Is she hurting her brand? But Caitlin Clark nearly gets into a fight with a referee? Crickets. Reese gets ejected? It's a scandal. Clark gets hacked, screams at the bench, and no one dares raise a question. This isn't about pitting players against each other. It's about calling out the media machine. Because Clark gets the fiery competitor label while Reese gets painted as unprofessional. If we're going to grow this league, we need to treat all stars like stars, with criticism and protection. But ESPN plays favorites, and we all know it. No ESPN deep dive on league-wide injury explosion. Where's the investigation? Where's the long-form segment? All across the WNBA this season, we've seen a spike in injuries. Rib fractures, concussions, muscle strains, and, most notably, repeat lower body issues among star players. It's not just Caitlin Clark, it's Aaliyah Boston, it's Chelsea Gray, it's Diana Taurasi playing through bruised ribs, and yet ESPN, the biggest sports network on earth, hasn't produced a single deep dive into why this is happening. No roundtable, no analytics segment, no player health special. For a league trying to gain respect, that silence says everything. If this happened in the NFL, you'd get a 30-minute E60 feature, but here, just a shrug and a box score. 3 players ejected in Fever Sun brawl, but ESPN focused on stats. Caitlin Clark gets shoved, Sophie Cunningham retaliates, emotions flare, and suddenly 3 players are ejected in a game that turns hostile. This was a moment that exposed the league's inability to control its most physical matchups. And ESPN's response? A recap of field goal percentages and top scorers. No coverage of how the brawl happened. No accountability for the no calls that led to the chaos. Just vibes and stat sheets. This was a turning point game, one that raised serious questions about WNBA officiating and player protection. But instead of digging into those hard truths, ESPN sanitized it. They buried the lead. Because conflict doesn't fit the narrative, unless it sells jerseys. Commissioner's silence on officiating trends. Where is Kathy Engelbert? Seriously, where is the commissioner while players are being slammed, yelled at by refs, injured without contact, and openly calling out officiating on social media? You'd think at some point this season she'd release a statement, do a press conference, go on ESPN's own shows to address what's become the biggest black mark on the WNBA this year. But no, nothing. No public action plan, no acknowledgement of referee inconsistency, no reassurance to players or fans. And ESPN hasn't asked for any of it, not once. This is the commissioner of the entire league, yet she's been given a pass. If Adam Silver had disappeared mid-NBA scandal, the media would eat him alive. But here, silence from both ends. No pressure from ESPN to fix refereeing crisis. Let's end with this. The refereeing crisis in the WNBA is no longer a rumor. It's not a fringe debate on Twitter, it's real. And yet, the most powerful voice in sports media, ESPN, refuses to apply pressure. Where's the accountability segment? Where's the call for reform? Where's the league memo demanding better officiating training, tech integration, or post-game reviews? Other networks are starting to cover it. Influencers, YouTubers, even Barstool Sports are screaming about it. But ESPN? They're still airing Caitlin Clark three-point montages with soft piano music in the background. If you love this league, actually love it, you demand better, not just from the refs, but from the platforms that shape the conversation.